talk about that second half of those cosine functions. So yesterday we wanted to find, like, kind of going around our unit circle and figuring out that x value, which is our cosine value, right? So today we're actually going to graph our cosine, kind of like how we did it with sine when we first started with those. And then we'll take a look at our little unit circle and make sure we have some of all of our values in there that we need, so that way we can move forward in the next couple days. Sound like a plan? So just like what we did when we had the sine function. So remember when this was sine, and we sat there and said we wanted to look at this whole unit circle, and we wanted to be able to take those values and make our sine graph. Remember doing those? So we're going to do the same thing, but now instead of doing sine, we're going to do the cosine. So we're going to graph all of those x points that are on our graph or on our unit circle and see what that kind of looks like. So we want to be able to replicate what's up there on the board. Right. Does anybody remember when it came to cosine, what the cosine graph kind of looked like? Yeah. Where did it start? Yeah, it would start at 0, right?
Is that the cosine unit circle?
Well, the unit circle is the unit circle. It's got all that information on there. But if we're looking for cosine, what values are we looking at? X's or Y's? X. So now we're going to go through and we're going to look at all of those X values. And now we're going to plot those X values and graph them. Right? Where with the cosine, we did it with the Y's. Yep. So when it came to doing our cosine, because our Y value when we start is at 0, our sine value always goes through the origin, and then we had like our little graph that went through. But now that we're doing cosine, which is our x values, it's going to start at 1. All right, ready to try this? So you guys probably, or you should have a lot of this already on your unit circle, right? So we knew that this, when I start this little guy, I need a different color. We're going to go red. I like red. Right? Whoop. So we have a unit circle, and we know what about a unit circle?
They're made of points.
Yep, and the radius.
Is 1.
Yep, the radius will always equal 1, right? Oh, that red does not show up. Looks beautiful on my screen. All right, we'll have to change that one. All right, so we know that our radius is 1. So, and now that we are looking at cosines, our cosine is looking at our x values, right? So we want to be able to go around our unit circle and find some of our x values. So if I think of this first point here, like at 0 degrees, if I started at the origin and I came over, what's my x value going to be?
1.
It's going to be 1, right? So we know that little guy is going to be, well, pooey, 1, right? And that one you could use for either 0 degrees or 360 degrees, right? Because you start and stop at the same spot. Right? This next little point here would be at how many degrees?
30.
30, yep, good job. Right, so this one's, I'm just going to write it right here. So that's at 30 degrees. And we want to find our x value at 30 degrees. So this was part of your guys' homework yesterday, wasn't it? To figure out that cosine or that x value. I think I might even have it on here still. Oh. Right. So we did this one together, right? So that's this one. So what's my cosine? Which one of these is going to be my cosine?
0.87.
Yeah, that's 0.87, right? Because cosine is our x values. Oop. So stop. So we know this. Oh boy. So this one is 0.87. And then you guys had to keep going around, right? So from here to here is going to be 45 degrees. What'd you guys get for the cosine of 45 degrees?
I got 0.71.
Yep, 0.71. Good job. Awesome. And then we went up to this angle. That's going to be how many degrees? Yep, 60. What'd you guys get for 60 degrees?
0.5.
Yeah, 0.5 or half, right? Sweet. Then we'd be at 90 degrees, right? What's our x value going to be at 90 degrees?
1.
1 or 0?
0.
Yeah.
0.
0, because we're looking at our x values, and our x's are how far left or right we're going, and we're not going left or right, we're just going straight up. So our x value is going to be 0. Right? You guys got that all filled out on your nice little unit circle. So now we're going to sit there and just do some reflections to sit there and find out all of our values going around the rest of the circle. Right? So I'm just going to start up here at the top. I had this 0.5. And let's say I reflect it over my y-axis. So I'd be reflecting it over here.
Negative
Right.
0.5.
It would be what?
Negative 0.
Yeah, it'd be negative 0.5. Because what are your x's in the second quadrant?
Negative.
They're all going to be negative. So we know this one is going to be negative 0.5.
And then negative 0.71.
Yep, negative 0.71. Negative 0.87.
And negative 1.
Yeah. And from my origin going over to 180 degrees, you get negative 1, right? All right. You picking up what I'm laying down so far? Now you want to go to the third quadrant?
Yeah.
Yep. So in the third quadrant, what's my x values going to be? Positive or negative?
Negative.
They're going to be negative, right? So this guy is going to reflect to this guy, right? So that's my negative 0.87. This guy reflects to this guy, right? Negative 0.71, negative 0.5. What's my x value going to be down here at 270 degrees?
0.
0. We doing good so far?
Yeah.
Yep. All right, so we got that fourth quadrant left, right? So in this fourth quadrant, my x values are going to be positive. So you have a choice. When it comes to doing that reflection, you can either take this guy and reflect him to here, right, if you like going across the x-axis, or you can take this guy and go across the y-axis, and you're going to get the same answer, right? It's just some people like to go up and down, some people like to go left and right.
Couldn't you just like keep it going?
Yeah, you can. Yep. Yeah, so what's this one going to be?
0.5.
Yep, 0.5. The one in the middle is going to be?
0.7.
Yep. And then we have 0.87. Not too shabs. So it's the one nice thing when it comes to this unit circle, and especially like when you go into trig and pre-calc next year, for those of you taking it, like we get to where we use this unit circle a lot. And I always kind of tell kids and students, like, if we get an understanding of just this first quadrant, then once you know that first quadrant and how everything works in that first quadrant, you can just sit there and flip it all the way around the rest of it. So if I sit there and say, hey, I want you to be able to, here's your quiz. I'm going to give you this blank unit circle and you're going to fill everything in there. And some people like flip out, right? But it's kind of one of those things, if we can get this first quadrant, then it's just going to be a reflection of everything going around, right? So just because it looks like there's a lot, it's okay. It's all right. We got it. All right. You ready to try and graph this guy? No. Well, I'm going to squeeze onto the next page real quick. And I'm going to do kind of how we did it when we did the sine. We had like our little y-axis. And we had this x-axis. So on this axis, it's really going to have to do with like how big or how small we get, or we can even just think of our radius. Our radius is 1. And if we look at our circle, what's the biggest number we have up there? 1, right? What's the smallest number we have?
-1.
-1, right? So that's why I'm going to spread them out, right? So way up here, I'm going to say this is a +1. And way down here is going to be our -1. And all of our points are going to fall somewhere in between. And then we're going to do this based off of our degrees. So if I go all the way around the circle, where do I go?
360.
360, right? So I'm going to put the 1, I'm going to put it way down on the end, I'm going to go 360. And then I like my halves. So I'm going to take 360 and I'm going to split it in half. And when I split it in half, I have how many degrees?
180.
180, right? And then I'm going to kind of keep going with those halves. What's half of 180?
90.
90. And what's right in the middle of 180 and 360?
270.
270, right? And those are really that x and y, that coordinate plane of all of those degrees, right? And then we had some other degrees we had on there, right? Oh, we can split this again, right? Halfway from 45, or from 90 is? 45, right? Halfway between 90 and 180?
120.
135?
Yeah.
You're all right. Right? Halfway between 180 and 270? 225. You got these filled out on your unit circle, right? Because that was the other thing you had to do, all the angles. And what's halfway between 270 and 360?
330.
315. Need a new bulb. All right. So right here would be 0 degrees, right? So at 0 degrees, what was our x value? 1. Yep. So at 0 degrees, we're at 1. Right? So the next tally I put on there was 45 degrees. So at 45 degrees, where are we at? Yeah, 0.71. So close to 1, but not quite 1. So right about there-ish. Right? Where are we at 90 degrees? Yep, now we're at 0. Where are we at 135?
Negative 0.7. Or wait, 0.7.
Yep, negative 0.71. So right about there-ish. Oh, maybe a little low. And what do we get for 180?
Negative 1.
-1. Where are we at for 225? Be right here.
Negative 0.7.
-0.71. So we're coming back up. What do we get for 270? So that would be
0.
0. $3.15. So that would be all the way to here. We get
0.71.
0.71. And what was it for 360?
1.
1. So we're back up to 1, right? So on our best little flowing, right? If we were to connect these, nice and easy, we know we got that wave. It's going to come down. And then it's going to kind of come back up. And we know this guy's going to keep going, so if we wanted to, we could kind of put a little arrow on that end. And we know we could go backwards on our circle, go negatives, so we could put our little arrows on that side. Right? So let's see if we accomplished our mission. So that's our beautiful graph, right? You guys all good with that? And we wanted it to look something like this one. Does it look something like that one? Yeah, yep. We kind of have it, like we didn't do all of the negative part. We just have like this little part, right? All the way to 2 pi, which is going around the circle, right? So we just showed that one period, right, of going around that circle once, but we know that we can keep going around and around and around and around that circle, right? All right. So a couple key points when it comes to doing cosine, which are those x values, you're always going to start keeping it just nice simple equations that we're going to keep with this year. You're never going to start at 0. You're really going to start at like whatever your radius is. So I'm either going to start at 1. If I had a negative out front, so like negative cosine of x, guess what's going to happen? It's going to start at negative 1, right? Remember, on any function that we have, if we put that negative out front, it flips it over the x-axis, right? We're not going to get into the craziness. We're just going to keep with these nice and simple ones. So we always know that when it comes to our cosine just never goes through the origin. Because what value goes through the origin? That would be our sine wave, right?
That's Mrs.